Hello there and welcome to Homo Politicos. This is Enterprise Television. Kingsley Bassi is my name. The first half of 2025 has tested Nigeria's politics in ways few could have predicted. From the corridors of power in Abuja to the streets of several states, governance, democracy, and accountability have come under intense scrutiny. In just 6 months, the first half of the of the year, Nigerians witnessed sweeping economic reforms, bold but controversial tax and fiscal policies, and a historic recalibration of the country's place in the global order. We saw the passage of one of the largest national budgets in Nigeria's history, alongside debate over transparency, legality, and the real impact on citizens already struggling with a high cost of living. Politically, the period was defined by institutional tensions and constitutional flashpoints. A state of emergency, for example, in Rivers State, the suspension of elected officials, and a legal battle. In fact, several legal battles over local government autonomy raised fundamental questions about federal power, rule of law, and democratic stability. Within the National Assembly, allegations of misconduct and disputes over legislative processes exposed deep fractures in political leadership. Security was in the picture too. It remained a pressing concern even today. From deadly attacks in the northwestern part of the country to current fears of kidnapping and banditry, the human cost of insecurity continues to shape public discourse. As a matter of fact, independent reports estimating thousands of deaths in just half the year underscores the urgency of governance beyond policy papers and press statements. On the international front, Nigeria made strategic moves. We strengthened diplomatic ties. We engaged in emerging global blocs, and we pursued foreign investment while navigating a world marked by conflict, economic uncertainty, and shifting alliances. All of this characterized the first half of 2025. Well, you've heard me say the first half. Today, on Homo Politicos, we're focusing on politics in 2025, and we'll just be doing politics. We'll be taking a look back at what January to June, that's the focus today, what January to June was like today. Now January to June is the focus today. Which controversies challenge democratic norms, and what do these developments within January to June 2025 politically, what they meant even for the second half of the year, for Nigerians watching closely, what they would mean come 2026 as we go into the year 2026. This is not just a recap. This is a critical review of leadership, of policy, and consequence. Welcome again to the broadcast. This is Homo Politicos. Kingsley Bassi is my name. You're watching Enterprise Television. I'm joined now by someone who doesn't just follow the news. He discusses the news. He chews the news. He has been, a dependable commentator too when called upon. A famous face across several platforms, discussing politics, discussing public affairs. He's done so, I've seen him do so myself across several platforms between January and December, not just 2025, but from month to month, day to day, he does this. I'm talking about political commentator Jide Ojo. He joins me virtually for this retrospect of the first half of 2025 politically. Thank you so much for joining me, Jide.
It's my pleasure, Kingsley.
Yeah, appreciate that. So let's get straight to the conversation. Nigeria in 2025. We're looking at the first 6 months today that shaped the nation. The first half of 2025 today, but imagine, was a defining period for Nigeria. It was marked by major economic decisions, political crises, there were security shocks, there were moments of national reflection. From January to June, several political events shaped governance, shaped livelihoods of Nigerians, and did shape the country's place on the global stage. So we're going to do a month-by-month breakdown of big political stories that defined Nigeria in the first 6 months of 2025. So let's begin with January, Jide. Well, for many persons, memory might not serve right if we're going to just do this randomly. But we have collated some of these stories, we've put them together, and we're talking about that breaking them down for you, January to June, month by month. Well, let's begin with January as mentioned. For January, January was, if you're going to look at the summary of what January was like, it was filled with economic shifts and some other related matters, economic shifts and national tragedies. It was so sad. We started the year 2025 on a sad note. For example, January opened with a significant diplomatic development as Nigeria was admitted into the BRICS. That's the BRICS bloc as a partner country, and that signaled a shift in economic and foreign policy orientation beyond beyond Western alliances. The BRICS, of course, we know is comprises Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That was how we started the year 2025. Looking back now, Jide, how do you feel about such alliance, the fact that we're now a partner country with the BRICS, and what this means for the country, and if you think we have benefited from that as well?
Well, Nigeria always has maintained a non-aligned movement policy, that we are not going to have alliance with only the Western bloc, but also with Eastern bloc. And Nigeria being admitted as a partner country to BRICS is of great advantage to us. Because in time past, even when it comes to issue of security, the West has let us down. They have refused to sell for us the arsenal that can assist us to fight insurgency. I take a particular instance of the US refusing to sell some necessary weapons to Nigeria under the previous administration. So Nigeria belonging to or being a partner country to BRICS, I think is a welcome development, and we start to gain immensely from that. Because actually it will amount to shooting ourselves in the foot if we just say we want to belong to the Eastern Bloc or the Western Bloc. Because when issues come, when push comes to shove, and you are let down by either of the partners, you have the other one to run to. So I think it's a blessing in disguise, as far as I'm concerned.
Interesting. Well, we do know too that at some point we signed, part of that admission into the BRICS bloc enabled Nigeria sign some form of bilateral agreement with Brazil, particularly in terms of trade by air. We want to talk about that and how that has benefited Nigeria too. Looking, with the benefit of hindsight now, looking back, we're in December 2025, looking back, for some Nigerians, I'm sure you've heard this several times. The president keeps traveling, the president keeps traveling. How really has this benefited Nigeria? Looking back, that we signed this in January, though this is a long-term thing, it would definitely, it's not just about this administration, but for Nigeria in the long term. But so far, do you think that this has been beneficial in terms of touching the lives of Nigerians, common Nigerians?
Of course it has. That bilateral air services agreement, BASA, has been of immense benefit to Nigerians who previously have to connect flights to get to Brazil. So there is a direct flight from here to Brazil now, Rio de Janeiro. And Nigeria is now serving not just Nigeria, but also the West Coast, West African sub-region. So rather than connecting flights to get to Brazil, you can have a direct flight from Nigeria. And Nigerians travel a lot. We have a lot of students, a lot of traders, businessmen in Brazil. So the journey has been made less cumbersome for them, as they can fly from Lagos, either from Lagos or Abuja, directly to Brazil, rather than having to go through a third country, third-party country, where they may need to get transit visa. So that issue of transit visa is no longer there, and it saves resources for these travelers.
Interesting. Jide, if you recall, at the time that deal was signed, a lot of Nigerians say, Shana, Brazil, we suppose they sign with. Why not some big countries and the rest? But interesting that you put it that way, that we have a lot of Nigerians, in Brazil doing business and the rest. But sticking with January still, January was that month, that was scarred by tragedy. You recall the Suleja fuel tanker explosion that killed at least 90 people, many of them residents who had rushed to scoop fuel. And the incident renewed national concerns over road safety, over fuel transportation as well. Looking back, I'm not sure that we've learned really from this, because after that Suleja incident in Niger State in January, we've heard several other reports, we've seen several other reports where incidents where people still fell for this. As a matter of fact, where we had tankers still falling by the roadside, fuel tankers, gas tankers as well, Jide.
Exactly, Kingsley. That tragedy happened, but several others have happened in the same Suleja, Niger State, after that singular incident. Because, one, people refuse to heed the advisory that when a tanker falls, and if it's carrying inflammable products, they should run away from such as far as their legs can carry them. And all attempts to go and scoop fuel from a falling tanker has led to these tragic losses of life. But I think the National Orientation Agencies and other state and federal Ministry of Information will have to be persistent in educating Nigerians about this issue of how to handle fuel tanker accident, and particularly when such fuel tanker is carrying inflammable products, that people need to vote with their feet, run as far as their legs can carry them away from the point where such happens.
How about road infrastructure? That's closely tied to sometimes it's a factor why these tankers fall sometimes. Bad roads, poor road network, and the rest. Do you think that we have learned from that particular tanker explosion in Niger State? Close to 100 people died. That's enough. That's a national tragedy, right? The next time we saw such magnitude of, the measure of death at once. We'll talk about that later. I think that was in June, the Yelwata, situation. But yes, do you think we've learned from this? Do you think government is doing well enough in terms of road infrastructure to fix and stop things like this?
Of course not. Our government has not done enough in terms of rehabilitating the deplorable situation of our roads. If you recall, the major challenge this economy under Tinubu is facing is the deplorable state of our roads, which have to be fixed. A lot is being done in this respect, but I think it's just that a lot is being done, but not enough is being done. So roads happens to be under the concurrent legislative list, which means both the federal and the state government can actually participate in that So, particularly for the Suleja and the Niger State fuel tanker tragedies, part of it has been linked to the bad state, the deplorable state of the road where those tankers are falling. And I think it behoves the federal government, if that road actually is under the purview of the federal government, to do, even if they don't have the money to reconstruct the road, at least let them do some palliatives that will make that road not to be prone to accidents again. So a lot still needs to be done, but I mean, to say the least, if you take a total of all the federal roads in Nigeria, maybe only 30 to 40% of them are actually motorable, while the rest are just barely tolerable in terms of smoothness and safety on the roads.
We saw that, with recent travels by several Nigerians, right? A lot of Nigerians complaining. We saw traffic on the Lokoja, the Buja stretch, the southeastern stretch as well, the Benin stretch. A lot of traffic situations and complaints from Nigerians who, in the first place, were wary of traveling because of the security situation. Well, let's stick with January some more, and this time talk the political tsunami that greeted January. So members of the Lagos State House of Assembly decided to impeach Speaker Mudashiru Obasa over multiple allegations of fraud, and it was replaced with his deputy, Honorable Mojisola Miranda. The clerk of the House, Olalekan Onofeko, was also suspended indefinitely, while the chief whip, Majid Fatai, was elected a new deputy speaker, as multiple reports at that time confirmed that the lawmakers removed Obasa during a plenary session while he was away in Georgia, Florida. I'm sure you still remember this very well. It was very dramatic, a very, very dramatic one. In just a flash, all of this happened. Obasa was away, returned, and then even while he was away, he did maintain that he was speaker. Meanwhile, that did split the State House of Assembly. They suspended plenary at some point. Lots of drama, happened at the Lagos State House of Assembly. Jide.
Of course, I remember that very vividly, and I did comment on that in my column in the Punch newspaper. Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa is a cat with 9 lives. He was able to swing his sack into reinstatement, courtesy of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And it will interest you that his son is currently the chairman of Agege local government. He just got inaugurated sometime this month, just last week anyway. So he's already building a political dynasty for himself. And you can't take it away from Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa. This is his 6th time in the House of Assembly, Lagos State House of Assembly. 6th out of 7 electoral cycles he has been there. He has the institutional memory. He's a grassroots politician. Is the one the president believes holds the Agege and Limosho local government or Lagos West holds it down for him. So, of course, there were a lot of grandstanding by the camp of the then Deputy Speaker, made Speaker Mojisola Miranda. But at the end of the day, President Bola Tinubu sent a ministry to mediate in the crisis. And I recall that former governor of Osun State and that of Ogun State, Chief Bisi Akande and Remo Olusegun Oshoba were the two statesmen that were sent by President Tinubu to go and mediate. After the mediation of this elder statesman, the president himself now called the 40-member assembly to his office in Abuja, and that was when the final deal was sealed. And since that time, Right Honorable Ajayi Obasa, Mudashiru Ajayi Obasa has been able to retain his seats, and we have not heard of any more troubles in the Lagos State House of Assembly.
How though do you think, Jide, this would shape politics going forward? Because, you know, the question then, or the concern then for many Lagosians watching, was that the State House or Assembly lawmakers didn't have political powers. You know, they were not politically independent, right? They were so dependent. They are taking a bold step, but they had to go back on that bold step they took because, you know, the party had said, don't do this, you cannot do this. Even though you have grievances, even though you have good reasons to do this, you cannot do this. But for many persons, they believe that there are still grievances here and there, and that this could shape the future of the All Progressives Congress in Lagos come 2027.
Well, what you need to understand is the president didn't want a repeat of 2023, where he lost his own base of Lagos and Osun State in the presidential election. I mean, not that he didn't get 25%, which is what he needed for that state to be counted as having been won from him. But what the president is looking forward to is that if he lost in 2023, he should not lose again in 2027. And we all know that it's an open secret that President Bola Tinubu will contest. In fact, this year has been a year of numerous endorsements for him. And so what he tried to do was to play a game of political survivor. It's a small sacrifice to be made to forgive Mudashiru Ajayi Obasa of whatever may have been his political sins, so that it doesn't work against the president's interest. If you understand politics, Lagos West, and I hope I'm right, where Alimosho Agege, local government, amongst others, has the highest number of voters. In fact, that senatorial district alone accounts for over 50% of the votes in Lagos State, compared to Central and the East. So the president knew the import of leaving Obasa in the lodge. Also, he has been a faithful Baptist. I mean, he has been loyal to President Bola Tinubu from time past. So the president wants loyalty, and that's why he came out to appeal to the assembly to sheath their sword, allows the status quo to remain. And don't forget, there must have been a gentleman's agreement that all those House members will also get automatic tickets, or what they call right of first refusal against 2027 elections. Whether this will be fulfilled or not remains to be seen. But I know that when you have this kind of behind-the-scenes negotiations, nothing goes for nothing. Those in the opposing camp to Obasa must have also tabled their demands, and there must have been some commitments extracted. But we wait to see how this pans out in 2026, which is just hours away.
Definitely, and that's why this review is quite an important one. I recall too that this reportedly split the governor's advisory council within Lagos. And we'll see how things go, really, because some members of that council, which is responsible for determining how things work politically within the All Progressives Congress in Lagos, where they had, some had. One particular person I remember had come publicly saying, directing that things should not be the way it was, particularly speaking to the Right Honorable Mudashiru Obasa. But let's move very quickly. Just one more, and we'll comment very briefly on this one when it comes to January, or as regards January 2025. And this is regarding security, which has shaped the political landscape of Nigeria, or in Nigeria, and this will continue to shape the political landscape because security is something that's quite important. Well, we recall that the federal government officially in January designated the Lakurawa militant group as a terrorist organization following court approval, and that move was to strengthen counter-terrorism efforts in the country. That's one thing, and that one that very quickly happened in January. You want to comment on this, Jude, before we leave January?
Well, of course, significance designating Lakurawa as a terrorist organization. Of what benefit has it been? Has it led to abatement of insecurity in the northwestern region? The answer is no. So designating a bandit as terrorist is a change of nomenclature. In this outgoing year, I haven't seen much improvement in terms of security situation. But it's okay that at least now the security agencies have been empowered to deal ruthlessly with whoever claims to be a member of Lakurawa. And perhaps there are media reports that the Christmas Day bombardment that took place is also targeting members of the Lakurawa terrorist group. So we'll wait to see how all of this pans out ultimately.
This particularly what happened in January in terms of security, the security challenge in January, and we just saw just a few days ago the bombings, the strikes by the United States of America under the command of President Donald Trump. There was a cooperation, of course, the approval given by the Nigerian authorities for that to happen. Well, let's leave January, go straight to February, where we had lots of budgets, currency, and public backlash, dominating February. February was dominated by fiscal and economic development as the National Assembly passed a record 54.99 trillion naira 2025 budget and later signed into law by the president, and that made history as the largest budget in Nigeria's history. Jide, even though the implementation of that budget is still being debated, is still a major concern.
Unfortunately, while it is the largest budget in the history of Nigeria, we are just being told in the outgoing year sometimes last week, by the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun, that only 30% of capital expenditure has been met as at end of December 2025. And that means 70% of the capital expenditure will have to be rolled over. And the culprit in this, according to Wale Edun, is because there was a lot of revenue shortfall from the federal government. So they couldn't raise enough resources to meet all the contractual obligations, and that's what has led to this rollover. In fact, interestingly, we are even told that the 2024 capital expenditure has been rolled over to 2025. 2025 and 2024 are now being rolled over to 2026. And that's why the President Tinubu said we will only have a unified one budget by March 2026 going forward. And that is a cause for concern as far as I'm concerned. Budget is an estimate, no doubt. So you don't actually need to have all the money when you are budgeting. It's a proposal, it's an estimate. But be that as it may, you should not overestimate your capabilities. And that is the lesson going forward. If we are going to roll over 70% of the capital expenditure, it then means that the economy didn't do too well in 2025.
In terms of budget-related matters, we know there's the controversy as to, hey, we succeeded with revenue generation. The president had mentioned that, I think, back in the month of August, and then much later when the Minister of Finance and that's Wale Edun was there with the Senate's committee trying to defend some of the budget implementation and policies in terms of finances. He did mention that we struggled with meeting those targets. Let's go to break now, and we'll get back. We'll continue with more big stories in the first half of 2025. We're looking back at 2025. The conversation continues here on More Politics.